So then the last, interoperability, kind of consideration or like an integration workflow best practice that we, have executed with partners and we see as a market leading integration scope is adding a couple more aspects to it. So again, similar workflow of receiving that testing request. We've been through that. The next thing is adding a step to retrieve the patient's kind of family medical history. So right, this goes into a lot of organizations. If you're trying to do like therapy matching, and from for a cancer treatment or whatnot, it's one thing to do the panel and to do the testing, but then there's also other data points you want to factor in to your consideration. So Tim, can you talk a little bit about if you add retrieving a patient's family history, how that works?
Yeah, absolutely. So step 1 and 2, exact same integration. You're going to consume that order from the EHR. That's really going to set off the entire process. So think of that really as the initiating event or the enrolling event. Still going to collect that sample for ultimately for testing. But then step 3 is where we look to actually gather additional information. And this is where we can initiate what we'd refer to as a clinical summary query via Redox. This could be a CCD request to a specific healthcare organization's EHR. It could be a clinical summary query against enterprise interop networks like Care Quality or Commonwealth. Through Redox, you'd be able to initiate a CCD query directly against the healthcare organization's EHR, as well as to Care Quality or Commonwealth. So ultimately, if you're looking for data about this patient's clinical history and their family history beyond just what that healthcare organization has captured on that patient, you can certainly support initiating queries to those broader networks to pull as much information back on this patient as possible. Once you've had this information, once you've pulled this information, you can use this to enhance the results that you're ultimately going to write back to ensure that really all the learnings that you've pulled regarding this patient, their history, and how best to continue treating them moving forward, you could put back into the EHR via that result payload that we're writing back inbound, and have that appear directly at the provider's fingertips. Now, some of this information that you might want to include may not fit incredibly nicely in discrete fields for that specific lab result. The plus side is you could certainly push more structured content into the EHR as well. So you could have all the discrete readings associated with your lab result, as well as more structured or formatted content, potentially in the form of a PDF or some other content delivery method, back inbound to the patient's chart, saddled alongside that result record, in case you want to structure that a bit more tailored to how you're looking for the provider to consume that, and not necessarily along the lines on how the EHR would display that content. And lastly, just like we mentioned before, you would still be able to trigger these same results out to the state or the public health departments via that same integration. We could certainly adjust the payload or add a filter to that if there's a component of that you want flowing back into the EHR, but don't want flowing to the public health department. So making this as simple as possible for you, so it's still that single connection, but ensuring that the EHR is only receiving the content they're interested in, and the public health agency is only receiving the content that they're in. Now, I do want to call out one other component that you could use to enhance this even a bit further. I've seen quite a few use cases for this in scenarios where, maybe ask at order entry questions during the order placement process in the EHR aren't enough to collect the discrete data or the data that you're looking for in that specific patient. Or maybe you want to enable a provider to have a much greater selection window when they're going through and placing that order. Maybe there's variables that you want to include on that. Or maybe it's a situation where you're looking to have that provider order something specific for a patient, and that list of available orderables changes so frequently that you don't want to have to continually re-update the order in the EHR. In scenarios where this is occurring, it might make the most sense to actually launch a third-party application from directly within the EHR. Now, there are really two ways that Redox supports doing this, and more so the broader industry from an EHR perspective. This could either be a SAML-based SSO integration or a Smart on Fire-based application launch. In both these scenarios, you leverage Redox's SSO data model, and we could exchange the context associated with when that application is being launched from generally by the provider from within the encounter flow in the EHR. This could open a window that displays a third-party UI. So you'd be responsible for generating basically a web application that could be launched from directly within this SSO window. there's going to be quite a bit of context that we can share at this point. So when this window launches, Redox will be passing data through this SSO handshake or Smart on Fire handshake to ensure that you have details about the provider who's taking this action, the patient who they're taking this action on, and then encounter specific details as well, so that you can ensure that the window that opens up to that provider is tailored specifically to the context that that provider is acting in. This could allow you to enter in quite a bit more details directly in the EHR, could allow you to really customize the order flow and details that you're collecting as part of that order entry process, as well as adjust the offering based on information you already have about that patient or details around that provider's specific preference if you do customization per provider. So that's certainly kind of the above and beyond use case. It does require a bit more work effort from an implementation perspective, but certainly something we've done on many number of occasions in order to really tailor that in EHR experience to get a lot of value from a provider's perspective.
Fantastic. So yeah, as you know, we call it market leading for a reason. So to Tim's point, you know, to execute this level of integration, you obviously will need a partner at the health system that also wants this desired workflow and has some IT capabilities to work with us and your team to make it happen. But if that motivation is there, it is certainly possible. And I think that this is a level of integration that provides the most value possible, right? You're not just doing the testing, you're also getting additional information that can help you when you are resulting, you know, what insights you're delivering can be more actionable or more nuanced or more customized with that additional information. And then additionally, you're optimizing the end user experience, either at order, at review, or both, to be frank. So I think that this is a cool example of what's possible. And, you know, the reason why we took the time today to explain what is possible is to help folks that are either, you know, looking to optimize their existing integrations or looking to understand what's possible. And I think that these three scopes give you a good overview of what is required, what is a, you know, added functionality, and then what is sort of the Rolls Royce of integrations, if you will, that can be executed and provide the most value.